Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. There is people online, so I appreciate everybody for coming. So we have this live stream online, and of course, this will be available on the internet for others to watch at their own leisure. I know everybody can't be here at that time, so I wanted to make sure this was an option for people. It's also what I like to call an additional feature kind of thing. So. Um, let's go ahead and get started. Community fiber for Woodstock. Welcome. So, internet. This is hosted by Internet Freedom from McHenry County. And Internet Freedom from McHenry County is a volunteer community interest group. We are not an internet service provider. We're not a company. We're not any of that. We're actually here to generate interest so we can build our own internet service provider, so we can get fiber. And we'll go into what we're actually proposing later on. But the big mission that we're trying to do is community fiber to everyone. And what community means is that we own it. It's ours for into eternity. And the idea, the model is cheaper, faster for internet for everyone, for all within McHenry County. So that's why we're doing this. And so I'm David Katowski. I'm your public interest director. I guess you can call me the president, the founder, whatever you want to call me. But I'm the founder. I'm a volunteer. I do this for free. So all the website and not all the materials, but some of the materials and everything, I do this for free because I actually believe in this. I believe this can change our county. This can change Woodstock. This can change all that. I'm an IT professional. I've been doing IT for about 15 years. I have a bachelor's degree from Purdue University. I'm working on my master's, hopefully to have it done by the end of the month. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm tired of the same old game from the providers. I'm just tired of not being able to get what I want. And we actually have a whole slew of volunteers. And of course, we need more. And so Larry covers Harvard, like the city of Harvard, Dunham Township, and Chemung Township. And his goal is that he just wants better connectivity, and he thinks investment in infrastructure is needed. I mean, he has satellite internet. That's how bad his internet is. And he can't get anything else. There is nothing else. And Mike Toller, he takes care of McHenry Township and Wonder Lake. And his goal is to see this county enter the 21st century. He thinks that internet should be a utility like electricity. There's actually a lot of parallels between the fight for universal electricity and cheap, plentiful electricity and also internet. In this day and age, it's just required for day-to-day life. And I have information to kind of support that. And Brett, he covers Richmond Township and the village, also the village of Richmond. And he didn't even like dial-up when it came out in 1993. And of course, he doesn't even see cable everywhere. There is not connectivity everywhere. And Jim Tubbs, our grant manager, we don't have any grants, but he is our grant manager, and he had fiber before. He had it, and he doesn't want to go back. But unfortunately, he's going to have to because he lives here in Woodstock. So, and he wants everyone to experience the speed and reliability that goes along with that. And our volunteer coverage is that we cover some parts, but we don't cover others. And it's a big county, so we really need volunteers. We need people to kind of speak up and say, hey, we want this. This is something we need. I cover Hebron Township, Greenwood Township, and Heartland Township. I'd be glad to get rid of other townships if I could. And I cover the city of Woodstock and the village of Greenwood. Whereas like Larry covers the 1 and 6 there, and we got Mike that covers McHenry Township and Wonder Lake, and you can kind of see that red is for Mike, and you got purple for Brett. And of course, this means we really need more help. Like Door Township, we don't have anybody in Door Township, and I can't cover everything, so we really do need people's help on this. But so the agenda for today is we're going to talk. We did the introduction already, so we're already moving along, and we're going to answer the question: how much is this going to cost? Everybody wants to know right off the bat what this is going to cost, and we'll cover that. We're going to do a little bit of knowledge sharing. We'll actually point you to the website, and we'll talk about our challenges and our current opportunity we have, because we actually do have a current opportunity available. For you that are here in person, you've already got some of those materials that are on the website already. So And we're going to share some survey results that we got from the Woodstock Chamber of Commerce. And we're going to talk about the solution, which is the community fiber network. And we're going to talk about the process. We're going to talk about like what steps do we have to kind of step through to get all the way to getting us fiber. And so first, we're going to start with how much is this going to cost? That's like right off the bat, you know, even before even people have agreed to say, hey, there's a problem. We actually have a problem. No, they're just like, how much is it going to cost? So, but let me really get this out of the way. And most likely, and I will show you and I will prove to you that it actually can be cheaper than what you're paying now. Now, obviously, if you don't have internet, I can't go cheaper than free. But what I can do is that what we're proposing is it can be cheaper than what the incumbents are going to are offering. And the reason why I can't tell you, and we'll go over that in the process, but there's tons of variables that go into how much it's going to cost. Like how many homes are we talking about? What's the density? There's a big difference between density. Is it underground, above ground? What's the funding method? What's the interest rates? What's all that? So you're talking about, like, imagine if you're trying to build a house, it really depends how much your house is going to cost based on everything, from the permits to what kind of light fixtures you're using to anything else. And fiber is just a really complex kind of thing. But now it's sharing. Please do visit our website. We do have an entire section on the Learn section, and it's on our website. If you go to the main page, it'll be up and on a navigation bar, and you can get to it. And there's a whole entire thing. But we have fact sheets, we have infographics, we have Broadband 101. And I'm not gonna cover that here because that's really something you can kind of do on your own, and that's something you can kind of get up to speed on your own. If you want to know the difference between bits and bytes and what the different types of wireless out there, that's fine. But really, we're just talking about fiber optics because fiber optics is the best that there is, and it's most likely to be the best there is for the next 50 to 100 years until we can go faster than the speed of light and go through space and time. That's the only way you're going to really be able to go any faster than that. And now, mind you, we haven't been able to really figure out how to go through space and time yet. But finally, we do have a whole slew of videos. Some of the videos we'll be showcasing here are already on there, so you can do that. For the audience members, unfortunately, for the folks online, you can't ask me questions, but for the ones in the audience, you can ask me questions as we go along if something's not very clear. But there is a lot of material, so I'm just going to kind of keep going. And the big packet I really want people to really just pay attention to is what fiber broadband can do for our community. This goes into a lot of detail. It's 40-some pages, but it's easy reading. It's actually worth reading. So the next thing is we're going to talk about the challenges and our current opportunity we have, our current service from the incumbents, and it just goes into all the different things like the lack of competition, our expensive service, the lack of universal service. We're going to talk about how this really impacts the school children and as it comes to the homework app, our seniors, and I'll just do a light mention on customer service. So, and after that, we're going to talk about the current county fiber network here in McHenry County. Actually, the fiber network actually goes to this location here in Woodstock Library. It's actually, this library is hooked up to it. And we're going to talk about what their plans are. And so basically in the city of Woodstock, there's only two providers. And these are the best value you can get. Now, so there's ATT Uverse and there's ATT Fiber. There's actually two different technologies. So one is DSL and one is fiber optics. And Comcast is all copper. That's all they are. But Comcast is the better option. It's faster, it's cheaper, you get more for your money. And ATT was building some fiber here in Woodstock, and it's out there, but it's mostly DSL here. So, and a lot of people actually aren't really using it because the upload's not that great, the download's not that great. But there is some fiber here, but it's really rare. It's not all that common. And so, like I said, ATT was going to start building, and they did. Some places there is some fiber here, but they pretty much only did utility poles in certain areas. And in fact, I haven't seen them for a couple months, so who knows if they're coming back to build more. I don't know. And so pretty much your only option, if you really care about what your bottom dollar is really Comcast Xfinity. And that's not really, in my opinion, a really great choice. And if we look here, we really wanted to kind of showcase what kind of expense you're talking about. So if you get 50 megs, and which is 50 megs down and 50 megabits up for AT&T Uverse, which is your DSL, you're paying $70. But obviously, if you're on AT&T Fiber, you get 300 megabits for $70. So already, the technology difference between AT&T DSL and AT&T Fiber is you're already getting like 10 times the speed for the same price. But if you don't have AT&T, if you don't have your choice, you obviously got a choice between AT&T Uverse and Comcast. For $100 or even for $70, you're obviously going to get more with Comcast. I mean, that's just the best value. And if you want to go to the maximum speed you can get, so AT&T Uverse is $100, and versus $400, you're obviously getting more. So you're just going to spend that money. And of course, you get fiber, you're going to pick fiber over copper, over coaxial, and that's just really clear. But how we know this is really expensive? We know this is expensive because other community fiber networks are offering it far better prices. I mean, you got so you have Linden Township, which is a rural township, and we'll talk about it later. But they're offering 100 megabits for $45.95. And of course, they add on taxes because they actually had to bond it out, and it was part of a referendum. But still, even for $65, $70, they're still getting more than what you could probably get for Comcast, and you're getting them cheaper prices. And the gigabit really comes out to $90, and so if you were to compare it to Comcast, you're really saving a lot of money by going to fiber. For a rural township, and in Chattanooga, which is apparently the big leader, they actually expanded their entire network at no taxes, no taxpayer base. So you get 300 megabits for $57.99. That's just incredible compared to the competition. And you got even RS Fiber, which is in rural Minnesota, way out there. It's just two counties, Renville and Shelby. It's more rural than McHenry County, even in densest places there. And they're offering 100 megabits for $100. That's still cheaper from Comcast if you can get it. So if RS Fiber is able to make the numbers work, what's going on here in McHenry County? Why can't we make the numbers work? And the Utopia Fiber, which is a big difference. So the structures are all different for these. So if you look at the bottom, you see city-owned and operated. That means Chattanooga actually owns the pipes and operates it, like a retail service, like AT&T or Comcast. Linden Township owns the pipes, so that means the people own it, but they actually hired somebody else to manage it because they don't have the technical capacity, so they can't. And RS Fiber is actually a telecommunications cooperative. So like all the cities and townships and the counties got together and said, we're going to create a telecommunications cooperative out of this to make it easier for us to all make sure we get connectivity. And then they decided they weren't going to do any taxes on that one either. So they were able to work with, the financing model is a little complicated, but really what it comes down to is they didn't have to pay any taxes. They did it mostly with loans. And Utopia Fiber is a government cooperative, much similar to the one here we have in the county, and it's open access. Open access means that they build it to the house, but then private operators come to you and say, you want internet, you want phone, you want this, and they have choices of 11 providers. So it's actually free competition. It's open competition there, and the business is much the same way. But what their taxes and what not their taxes, but what their user fees, the lowest cost you'll pay is $65 for 250 megabits, and that's actually a pretty good price. That's not bad for open competition. You get to choose different ones. Ones are better, some aren't. But so people say, well, geez, what's the difference between AT Uverse and then fiber and everything else? The big difference, if you really want to know, is that one, it's copper and it's fiber and everything else, but the lower end packages all have bandwidth caps. That means that you can always go, like, so let's say you have ATT fiber 300 megabits a second. You can only go that fast for a terabyte. That's as far as you can go. All the community fiber networks, you can go unlimited. So if you want to download 10 terabytes or probably no more than probably 20, they won't, I mean, that's what you pay for. But these guys will charge you through the nose to get it and everything else. The only packages for ATT and Comcast that you can get unlimited without paying extra is the gigabit and the Comcast gigabit. Those are the only two that you can get. Otherwise, you have to pay a $30 surcharge on top of your normal fee. So like, for example, 300 megabits a second for ATT fiber for $70. You want unlimited 300 megabits? You got to pay $100. But why would you pay $100 when you can get a gigabit for free anyways? But, you know, that's not the same thing with Comcast, you know. So it's a weird, so the bandwidth is not a scarce commodity. I mean, fiber optics is nearly unlimited. And I'll explain why it's unlimited. But it's nearly unlimited and there's not a bandwidth shortage. But ATT and Comcast are profit-seeking companies. There's nothing against that, but their motive is to maximize profitability where they can and return that to the shareholders. That's just part of the thing. And so universal coverage, there is not universal coverage. For the most part, there's universal coverage here in Woodstock, but if you get immediately out of Woodstock, you lose coverage almost immediately. So like, for example, I was talking to State Representative Steve Reich, our state rep here, and they were working with Comcast and ATT for months to try to get internet access for the folks near Rose Farm Road, the Rose Farm Estates, just outside of Woodstock. It's 14120, and there's like a little road called Rose Farm. And they worked with them for months, and they said, hey, we're going to try to, let's get a town hall going, let's just show you the demand. I was even working with an individual last September, and he was actually able to get a number of contracts, signatures for Comcast, and they turned them down. Unfortunately, that individual, his name was Tim Mason, and he's no longer with us, which is too bad because he would have been a really great spokesperson for those folks there. But at the end, Comcast and ATT told Steve Reich, representative, no. They said, no, it's not profitable fast enough. Now, a lot of these companies are looking for profitability in like 3 years or less. So if it's not profitable in 3 years or less, they're not going to do it. So that means they're not going to build out even to the less profitable areas, even though right at the edge of town, it's not far from the go. And also, not only that, the Village of Richmond, they don't want to compete either. So like the Village of Richmond asked Time Warner Cable, which is now Charter, Comcast and ATT to come into the Village of Richmond to provide more choices, and they said no as well. So we really have no alternative here. And the only alternatives are really expensive. You got fixed wireless, which is better than satellite. It really is, if you can get it. But I'm not going to go into Broadband 101, but you basically have to be able to see the tower. If you can't see the tower where the wireless is, you're not going to get signal. And there's actually quite a bit of that. In the Rose Farm Estates, folks can't because they have trees. It's just trees. And that's why a lot of wireless doesn't work. It's just because you have trees, you have mountains, you have anything that could stop the signal. And of course, worse off if you have absolutely nothing, you have satellite, and it's super expensive. It's not even based on the speed at this point. It's based on how much you want to download. So the way the satellite companies work is they say you get up to 25 megabits, but they say you can only download like 30 gigabytes a month. And they charge you based on how much bandwidth you want to use. And so, like, for example, if you want to download like 30 gigabytes a month, it's going to cost you like $140 a month. And your speeds are probably like 5 megabits a second. Like Larry out in Dundon Township, he gets like maybe 3 megabits. And he pays like $100 a month. And so if you look at community fiber, you see you get a lot more for your money and everything else. And so, and all of these challenges of expensive coverage and not universal coverage and everything else really add difficulty to our children, young adults, and seniors, and just the average person. And so we're going to talk about what is the homework app. And so what the homework gap is a phrase describing the accumulation of missed assignments by students who lack technology and access to the internet outside of school. This really disproportionately affects students who are already more likely to fall behind academically. And so what we have is two different worlds here. We have the one on the right, which is somebody who probably makes more than $75,000 a year in their house and has a really expensive laptop from a certain consumer type device that's probably a couple grand. And of course, they probably have internet and their kids have it. And so they're set. But however, likewise, you got teenagers and everything else that don't have internet at home, but they're lucky to have a laptop. They have to go to McDonald's, they have to go to the library, they have to go to friends' houses to do their homework. And that is just a huge inconvenience. It's just absolutely hugely inconvenient. And that just really adds to things. So the homework gap is the difference between children who have internet and who don't. And we're gonna watch a video real quick that's gonna talk about a competition. So there's gonna be two sets of students, and they start out the same. So they get the same questions, they answer the same questions, but halfway through the competition, and they're actually divided by a partition. One group gets a computer and the internet, and the other group just gets books and encyclopedia and stuff like that. And the questions actually get more detailed and they get harder. So let's see what happens.
3279.
That is correct.
How did they know this? Are you kidding?
Welcome to today's academic challenge. You may only use what's on your table. There will be 3 rounds, and the questions will get harder. What is the largest animal living today? Team A.
Blue whale.
Team B.
Blue whale.
That is correct. What is the square root of 144?
12.
12.
Correct again.
Go, Janine.
India.
India. Neil Armstrong.
Neil Armstrong.
William Shakespeare.
Correct. We are tied. For round 2, we're going to give both teams some additional resources.
Okay.
Who was the first president to live in the White House?
John Adams.
That is correct.
Oh my God, bro. Come on.
What does the acronym LCD stand for?
Wow. Just wow. We can do this. Right?
Liquid crystal display.
Correct.
How did they know this?
Go with it. Just go with it.
Sargasso Sea.
That's correct.
8 minutes and 20 seconds.
Correct.
Samuel Morse.
Correct.
Denver, Colorado. Santa Fe, New Mexico. And Salt Lake City, Utah.
That is correct. Let's pull back the curtain.
Are you kidding me? That's so not cool. I'm offended that they had such an unfair advantage. It was way too fast.
Please have your team captain open the envelope on the table.
70% of teachers assign homework requiring access to the internet, and yet 5 million households with school-age children do not have high-speed internet service at home. That just puts 5 million other people at a disadvantage, which is not okay.
Nearly 50% of students say they have been unable to complete a homework assignment because they did not have access to the internet or computer.
I didn't know that the percentage was so high. Everything he does is in the computer. So if he didn't have access to it, he wouldn't have a chance.
Someone may not be pulling the grade not because they're not smart, they just don't have access to what all the other kids have. Oh, that's so great.
So the homework app, they talked about a study that they did, but there was a new study that just came out recently done by Microsoft. And they actually estimate that the number of homes that don't have adequate broadband is way much higher than that. Way much higher than that. And so what we're going to talk about real quick is there's this little bar right here that I really want to talk about is that, so this one on the left here is the daily use of devices for our school-related activities by the number of devices that students have access to and only access to a smartphone. So it shows how much people are able to do their homework with only a smartphone versus people who actually are able to do their homework with like a laptop or a computer or any of that. And if you look at the color, the orange one is the smartphone only, and it steps up and they say, well, access to only one device, you have 55% there. And of course, you have two or more devices, you got 68% of them are able to do their homework and everything else. And what the gap between having a smartphone only and having a laptop is 20 points. That's a considerable amount of difference that they have. But not only that, if we move to the right side, which is even more telling, so this is a statistic from the Pew Research Center, and it says many school-age children live in households without high-speed internet. And this is the percentage of U.S. households with school-age children that do not have high-speed internet connection. And the one we really want to pay attention to is right here, because between 0 and 74,000, it basically adds up to 52% of those households that have children, they don't have high-speed internet. And of course, the richer you get, the less problematic it is. And you can even see it right here, 75,000 or more, you're down to only 6% of households don't have it and everything else. And that's just absolutely incredible. And so the median household income here in Woodstock is $57,000. So this is based on annual household income. So that probably means that a significant portion of our school children households don't have internet. And we don't have any statistics yet to say that's true or not because we haven't been able to do our broadband survey yet. But really, this is a handicap that our kids can't afford to have because it translates into lifelong problems, and it just kind of spirals into this whole thing. And I was at the city council meeting the other day, for the city of Woodstock, and Mayor Brian Seeger was even saying that children are our legacy. And he's like, this is really important. I mean, our tax dollars, 75 cents on the dollar, go to our schools to teach our kids. And so if we have this problem, which I think we do, I think we should help with making broadband more affordable. And I think we can. And I think I have a solution to do that. And this kind of talks about is the sole type of devices that students have at home. So most students actually have a smartphone. But only 27% have a laptop, and it just kind of tapers off at that point. And this really just adds to everything. And so I thought this was really interesting. So Woodstock District 200 is implementing a new online registration program. Okay, that means the parents have to register their kids. Well, if we just think about the previous statistics, who does that really benefit to be able to do online registration if they don't have broadband at home, right? Well, that means that it's the more affluent families that can only afford it, and most of our parents probably can't utilize this. and they're probably doing it with their phone, and that's an expensive cellular connection. It's really not that great. And then this is the survey that we're talking about. So we got a pretty good amount of the parents that can't even get online and check grades and do all the things they need to do to be a good parent, and they can't do it because they don't have affordable broadband. And so everything is, and this is a quote from Jane Margolis, and it says, everything is directed at raising test scores, and the social consequences of that is that the students with the most resources, are more affluent places, can develop those computing skills, while minorities or even lower income folks don't have that opportunity. And computers is having access to computers and know how to use them and everything else is really fundamental in a digital age. And we really can't afford to not do that. And so let's talk about our seniors. And so just like previously, we have a contrasting difference. We have a senior probably at a lower income and is at a library like here in Woodstock, and that's the only internet access he has. And you got somebody on the right who is probably more affluent and he's able to do it at home. Is that whole true? It does, actually. So, but our seniors actually, for the most part, anybody over 65, 67% of them, they use the internet. They actually do. So, but all adults, 90% of them are actually using the internet. So there is a little bit of a gap there. But what's really telling is that home broadband, only 73% have broadband. Only 51% of seniors have it. That really shows. And so seniors typically aren't working. They're usually retired. So this really kind of shows a little bit more of a bigger picture that broadband is actually all that affordable. And we see some of the different things that the seniors use, like a smartphone, a tablet, and social media. And so the home adoption is really a problematic. And so who of our seniors are actually using it? We got a survey here. It's what it comes down to is it's our younger, more educated, and wealthier seniors that are using it. If we look at our lower income seniors, less than 50,000, it really drops off. I mean, it really drops off. And there's a good percentage, and if you're less than 30,000, it's even less. So the majority of our seniors are actually not able to use the internet at home. They just don't have it because they can't afford it. And likewise, that kind of transcends a little bit for our county in a way, even for our adults. So if we remember, the parents that actually were making 75,000, like most of them had internet. But if you're making less than 75,000, which most people in Woodstock are making less than 75,000, I mean, in fact, the median income is 57. This really shows that there's a real problem. And we can see the kind of outlined here. So home broadband adoption is on the left, and basically less than 27% of people making less than 30,000 have broadband at home. And likewise, if you're between 30 to 50,000, only half have it. That's just incredible. However, despite all the grumblings of our seniors give about millennials and everything else, they have found the internet to actually be a really positive impact upon the world. The majority of them, 58%, actually say that the internet has had a technology has had a positive impact on society, and there's like 33% that are kind of a toss-up, and there's some that have negative. So what are seniors? So if they don't have broadband, our seniors are really lacking a better quality of life, and this really, without connectivity, they lose some of that mental stimulation. They, the games and the online activities really are cognitive exercises for our seniors that can really help keep their minds sharp and alert while reducing the risk or delaying the onset of age-related dementia. So it's really critical that our seniors be able to afford to be able to connect. But not only that, it allows them to be really social. Social activities keep our seniors mentally engaged, and this is important to prevent the onset of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And it also helps with improved quality of life and well-being. And telehealth, which is an emerging thing, it's really coming down the pipe. And so telehealth is anything that can be done remotely and everything else. So telehealth really could be beneficial for people who are traveling. So let's say you're a senior and you like to travel and everything else. You would be able to talk to your doctor. You might be able You have a question to your doctor. If you have broadband and you have the ability to do that, you can ask your doctor and you can send a message instead of actually setting up an appointment. Because every time you set an appointment, sometimes you have to pay a copay, sometimes you don't, and that all adds to everything. And it can help doctors get better care. So, like for example, family doctors can consult with a specialist in real time. So, this is between the family doctor and the specialist, and they can send data and everything else. And eventually that doctor will be able to interact with the senior with that data. But if they have telehealth, they can't really do that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go in to see your doctor, but I'm just saying this could actually, for less important things, more regular things, but it also would help with that. So telehealth also boasts many potential benefits like making healthcare more affordable and increasing accessibility. And so fiber optic broadband can bring connectivity for the devices yet to come. So like, for example, she's got like kind of a heart rate, a blood pressure medicine. We don't have this yet, but you could theoretically take that data and actually send it to your doctor. So you're getting daily checkups to your doctor. And you could have your diabetes hooked up also as well. I mean, I remember when I was at Purdue and some of the master thesis and senior thesis were talking about diabetes, Palm Pilots or, smartphones now. And so there's just so much that we can't possibly see what's coming down the pipe for this stuff. And it's kind of a chicken and egg kind of thing. If you don't have it, then the stuff never gets developed. Much like the same thing of electricity, like 100 years ago. When electricity came in, there wasn't any appliances made until it started getting to these more wealthier places. Then they started making vacuums and fans. Actually, the fan was probably the most profitable thing there was because there wasn't anything to circulate air. And eventually the demand came with the appliances. And if we have this broadband universal coverage, we don't know what might come down the pipe, but we have to be prepared for it. So it's kind of one of those things, chicken and egg kind of thing. And transportation is a big thing. So as our seniors age, they're not as agile, they're not as able to drive as well. But without having fiber everywhere, we're not going to be able to have automated driving. It's just really not going to happen. I mean, it's happening now, but it's not totally tenantless. You have to have some kind of connection and everything else. And if you want to have more interactivity and you want to have better results and more accurate, you really need to have that connectivity. And 4G is not going to provide that. 5G is better, but you really need to have that fiber everywhere. And fiber isn't everywhere. And so this is a good thing that if we were to have fiber everywhere, we can have more automated driving, and that really increases their mobility as well. And so that's a big thing. And so I'm just going to summarize a little bit, but I'm going to talk about customer service. So there was a survey that I used to show as part of these presentations, and the customer service is awful. I mean, you ask anybody, they're like, no, Comcast sucks, AT&T sucks. And actually, statistically, that actually is well supported. Actually, so Comcast and AT&T and telecommunications and internet providers in general score worse than the airline industry, the financial banks, and even the IRS. They do a worse job than the IRS does. And so I find that to be actually fascinating. So most of these guys are at like 60 points, I think, for the American Consumer Survey Institute. And the IRS is at like 76 or something like that. So they're like 10 points better than what Comcast and AT&T can offer. So, but in summary, this is really, we have a huge problem, and what are we going to do about it? What can we do about it? If the private sector isn't going to do it, is it going to how do that? What are we going to do? Well, let's talk about the current county fiber optic network we have. So we actually have a public fiber optic network, and they laid 15 miles of it in Woodstock in 2013. And that's 21 sites between McHenry County College, City of Woodstock, Woodstock District 200, and that actually excludes Greenwood Elementary School. Greenwood Elementary School in the village of Greenwood doesn't have the fiber optic network, so they don't have that. But all the other District 200 schools do, and the McHenry County and the Emergency Telephone Board are also hooked up to this. And it's called the McHenry County Broadband Fiber Network Consortium. And I just call them this consortium. And they actually have regular meetings, but it's usually like on a Tuesday at like 1 o'clock. So if you have the time, you should check it out. When I do go, I'm the public, but these are public meetings. So this is the structure really as it is. It's a government cooperative. That's really what it is, and it consists of these 5 members. And so this is the fiber optic network that we have, and it starts at MCC down there in the lower corner, and it goes up 14, and it goes down Lake Avenue, and it goes into the city. So if we look at the northernmost point up there, that's Woodstock North High School, and if we look at the southernmost point, that is Creekside Middle School, and off to the west is American Park. This is the foundational fiber for our city. We have this. We can use this to expand service to everyone, and we wouldn't run out of capacity anytime soon. And we could do that. And so if we zoom in a little bit, this facility, this Woodstock Library has it, and of course it goes right down the street. But that only the government's hooked up to this at this point, only the schools and everything else. And the broader, you can't really see it that well, but the red dot is the consortium, and the blue stuff is what is called the Illinois Century Network, or it's iFiber. And what it does is it goes down 14 and it switches off at Randall Road, and it goes straight down Randall Road. But nobody else is hooked up to it along the way. So they built this big giant fiber line up there, but nobody else is hooked up to it. Past and future plans. So McHenry County did create a broadband plan back in 2011. It was a countywide plan. It was over 210 connections. It included government buildings, schools, businesses, and other community institutions. It was priced at, and it's not for everybody, it was going to be kind of a countywide foundational fiber. And I talked to some people about this, and I got this through a FOIA, so that's how I got it. And this is the countywide network that we could have done, and you can't really see it really well, but basically it was going to come out to some 200 miles of fiber. And what it could have served for is the foundation for us to expand to businesses and residential and everything else. But unfortunately, the county's only built here in Woodstock. So this plan never came to fruition. But its capacity is nearly unlimited. Fiber is just that way. And it's ready to be expanded. They've partnered with a firm to try to hook up businesses. They're spending $10,000 to try to go after 40 to 50 businesses that can actually afford it. But however, it's really expensive, and so only those really richer companies can actually afford it. Like for example, my office is in 224 West Judd, which is the old District 200 annex. The original District 200 building was right across the street from me, which is just down the street. And that's hooked up to the fiber network. And so I asked them, I said, how much would it be for me to run fiber just across the street? And they said $10,000. Now, our businesses can't afford that. But even more, our businesses can't afford the $1,200 a month for enterprise gigabit service. Now, 100 megabits is like $600 at its cheapest. So, and I actually have some survey data to actually show that most of our businesses don't pay anywhere near that whatsoever, and so this is what they're trying to do, but it's not affordable for our small businesses. And so, is there any future plans other than what I just talked about? Nothing. There's absolutely nothing anywhere. There's nothing in the 2019 budget. I'm sure there's nothing coming up for the 2020 budget. There's no talks. There's nothing. There's nothing in the Woodstock budget. Absolutely nothing. It's just a ghost town on this stuff, and so. But however, we worked with the Woodstock Chamber of Commerce. We conducted a survey as part of their membership survey during the month of January. Unfortunately, it was only 21 respondents, but I've been told that's actually pretty good. I was told by people from an email survey that's actually pretty good. And so basically what's come out to is the question was, do you think having reliable, high-speed, cost-effective broadband internet is essential for our business and a factor in fostering economic development? Overwhelmingly, the people that responded to this said yes. They think it's essential. Now, what's interesting is I talked to some people, they don't think that. They actually don't think that the having reliable, cost-effective broadband is not important. And in fact, you actually got a few people that actually don't actually believe that, which is interesting. And we only had 5 questions. So how satisfied are you with your current internet service? We thought this was very surprising because overall they seem to be satisfied with their connection. So what's the rub? What are they unsatisfied with? That's what we're going to ask next time we do a survey. And so we asked them, what issues do you have? If you're okay with it, but what issues do you have? And unfortunately, the survey data only allowed us to pick one. And so what was really interesting is we don't know what the other is, but it looks like people find the service to be too expensive, and they have a problem with net neutrality. So this is what they found to be the most important. And the second one is browsing the internet's too slow. It just takes forever. Now, we don't know if they have Comcast or AT&T or any of those. We have no idea. And we don't know what the others are either. So we wanted to ask, well, how much are you paying? It seems most people are paying between $75 to $150 a month. So if we think back to $1,200 a month, apparently there's one business that pays $1,200 a month for their internet connection. But the vast majority are paying less than $600 a month. So how are the businesses going to be able to afford to hook up to our fiber optic consortium network? They're not. And finally, do they want the businesses to have the chamber advocate for something better? And they said yes. Overwhelmingly, they want the chamber to help out with this. This means that our businesses are really wanting something better. They really do. And now, while it's only 20 respondents, not, there's like 200 chamber members. I think this is a good sneak peek into what is probably coming down the road, which is businesses really do want something better. And we should probably explore that with a broadband survey. And we're working on that. But so interesting results to look into. But businesses do want reliable, high quality, cost effective broadband options. And so the solution to all this is a community fiber optic network. And we're going to do a quick video as to why community fiber. We're going to talk about the gold standard, which is fiber optics, and why that is. And we're going to talk about a cooperative model. Right? We'll get into that. We'll talk about the benefits, the examples of others, because there are hundreds of communities that have done this throughout the United States. Democrat, Republican, rural, urban, they did it. So we're going to watch this video real quick and be like, why community fiber?
Once upon a time, our dial-up connections were enough. As the demand increased, so did the supply. We had DSL and cable. But the colossal DSL and cable corporations monopolize access to the internet, and today's needs can't be met by yesterday's service. Some forward-thinking groups around the country have built community-owned broadband networks that are better equipped to anticipate the needs of tomorrow. Owned by cooperatives, nonprofits, or local governments, they put community needs first. It's simple. Community broadband networks are great for consumers and local economies. Not only are they crazy fast, but they keep our money in our communities. They create much-needed jobs. They connect schools to the world without breaking the budget. They take control out of the hands of distant corporate executives and put control into the hands of the local residents and businesses. They provide competition and real choices where the private sector has not. These networks need your support, or they will be crushed by the big corporations. Big cable and DSL companies want states to make it impossible for communities to build their own networks. That's a decision that should be made locally. So let your elected officials know that you support local self-determination. Don't let big cable make any more decisions for you.
As I said, they really don't want competition. They don't want to have to think beyond doing what they're doing. They don't want to think like a competitor. They just don't. And there's so fiber optics, the gold standard. How is it? Well, it uses strands of glass and it uses lasers. And basically what it does is it shoots lasers down these little glass tubes the size of like human hair. I actually have a ribbon fiber here. One of these fibers is just like the size of human hair. And that's actually what we use in our network here in the county. So that's actually a sample that we have. And it uses lasers and it just reflects. So if you bend it a little bit, it actually reflects and it just makes it happen. And so that a single fiber is nearly unlimited bandwidth. So you can run the entire county on one single strand of fiber if you really wanted to. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can. And so it reflects internally. So like a good example here is you got a glass container and it just puts a little laser down it and it just kind of refracts. It just keeps going. And there's actually two different types. There's multi-mode, which allows you to have a multitude of different types of lasers. And there's single mode, which only allows one type of laser. So like when you think of lasers, you got to think of like the visible light spectrum. You think of like blue light, yellow, and red, and all that kind of stuff. Well, if you have multitude of different colors of lasers, you can actually have multitude of different signals. So you can start to aggregate your signals all together, and you can get into multi-terabits per second with this type of stuff. So when I mean it's ultimately unlimited, yeah, it's unlimited. However, single mode is a little bit different, but it's used for longer distances. It's like used for between links and cities and also like continents. And that's what they use. But for the multi-mode, you would see this more locally. And the current standard is 400 gigabits a second, but really it's nearly unlimited. And it will last decades. So Corning Glass is the original makers of the fiber optic, and it's going to last at least 25 years. Corning Glass has actually said that as an accounting measure, as a useful life, they say it'll last 25 years. But really, we're still using the same fiber from the 1970s when they first came out, and it's still being used today. So, I mean, if we were to do this, it will outlast my lifetime usage and everything else. And so really what we're recommending is we build our own network. We build our own ISP. And we do it political division by political division, like township by township, village by village, city by city. And the reason is, is because there's actually no leadership at the county level. So instead of the county doing it as together and as the leadership, there's no leadership at the county level to make this happen. So it really needs to be left to the lower folks, like the townships and the village, to kind of do this on their own. Except that it's more expensive to do it that way. It's more troublesome. It's difficult. And I don't know why there's no leadership at the county level. I have no idea. I just know that the county's been talking about it for 15 years or so. And they said, well, how are they going to pay for it? That's a common thing I hear from people is, how are we going to pay for it? Well, I don't know if people have been paying attention, but the county just actually reduced its levy by $15 million a year. And so it's like, well, you had the money. You could have invested in this, and you could have done, countless benefits for the entire county. And you had $15 million. I mean, if you spent $15 million over 10 years, that's $150 million in fiber. That's more than enough to cover the entire county, no problem over. It only takes $60 billion to cover the entire United States. So, just think about that. And so what we're advocating for is a community-owned fiber, a cooperative model, and owned by us. We're not doing it like the food co-op where you have to pay in. No, we're actually kind of thinking of it as more or less as government entities helping formulate this cooperative as kind of like taxpayers, but in a way it's different. And so what the idea is that the benefits go directly to us. I ripped this off something else, so it was a store. But the concept is the same, which is that the profits go back into everything. And if we ever wanted to and we ran out of things to improve and make it happen, we actually can get a dividend. So we can actually become a real shareholder of our own company and actually get real dividends. And the idea is to keep costs low. And what? Why? Why are we going to do a cooperative? Why can't we just have the government do it? Well, so let's talk about government for a minute. So let's say it's a government fiber optic network. It goes and they bond out for it. So that means the taxpayers invest in it, either through service fees or through taxes. Eventually, those loans are going to be paid off. They're going to get paid off, but the question is do our costs go down when that happens? Does it? I don't know. But with a cooperative model, it should, because we would dictate that. Now, do our elected officials, would they do that on their own in a good free will? I wouldn't think so. And the other additional thing is why the cooperative model? Shared services. So we don't want our townships running this, so we really want to be able to do this ourselves. We want to have the expertise. The focus is the network. That's the focus. Instead of it being other things, it's the network. And really what it does is it builds a firewall around everything. It really builds a firewall around it so the money doesn't go out. It actually just stays in there. Because we have issues here in Illinois. Illinois Lottery is a really good example. I mean, wow, it's been around for like 30 years. Not all the money goes to education. And there's the other flip side is that even if the money is going to education, let's say they're getting $7 million a year for the education. Now, what the General Assembly could do is they could say, "Oh, well, you don't need that. You don't need $7 million from the general fund anymore. So we're going to divert that." So they actually never really improve quality of service whatsoever. So what happens is that what happens today, which is we have a huge problem where we pay a lot of money for taxes and the state doesn't help us. And also there's the Illinois Tollway. That's always a beautiful piece of work that we have here. So the Illinois Tollway said you're gonna pay a toll, you're not gonna have to do all this stuff, and the rates just keep going up, and it never stops. And there's the Illinois Skyway, the Chicago Skyway. So they decided to sell their asset. So we have a fiber optic asset. At some point, somebody says, "Oh, we don't need this. We'll sell it off." Well, geez, we just spent a lot of money to build something and maintain it and everything else, and they're going to sell it off to a private company. Well, screw that. And don't forget the parking meters. Don't forget the red light cameras. Our Illinois elected officials can't be trusted. They just can't. They can't be trusted to do the right thing. And here in McHenry County, it's happening over and over with the water treatment plants all over. I mean, there's Harvard that has to spend tens of millions of dollars to do their water treatment plant and everything else. There's Marengo. It just goes on and on, where basic services just are having trouble being maintained by our elected officials. I don't know why that is. I just know what the result is. So, and is it really possible to build our own network? Yes, it is. Many communities, hundreds of communities have done this. And there's an entire map that's at the bottom here for the link. And it goes on. And there's 108 municipal communities that have done it. There's rural electric cooperatives that have done this in rural parts. So the rural electric cooperatives were the result of electrification of America. And now these guys are getting into fiber optics because the incumbents won't. They won't do it. So history has a tendency to repeat itself here. And others actually built their own cable network. Can you actually believe that? And because it was the time when they didn't really consider fiber, so they did coaxial. So they actually did it. I think Highland, Illinois is one of those. But I think they've since upgraded to fiber optics. And there's a number of different examples we're going to go through. So Linden Township and Rock Falls will be the two we cover. But Champaign-Urbana has a community fiber optic network. And there's Fairline, Ohio, Highland, Illinois, there's Chattanooga, Tennessee. It just goes on. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like I said, red, blue, rural, doesn't matter. And so Linden Township, as I was telling you, is in Waterloo Recreation Area, a little outside of Ann Arbor. It's right smack in the middle of Waterloo Recreation Area, Route 94. There's nothing out there. It's got a population of 2,100 people. It's about 1,000 homes. And they started last year and they'll finish this year. And what they did is they actually did a referendum, a general obligation bonds, which means like we just had yesterday where you voted to have a levy increase. You could do the same thing with other stuff in roads and bridges and everything else. You could do this for fiber optics. Fiber optics is not new technology, it's just new infrastructure. That's really all this is. And they offer internet access and phone. And they're offering a gigabit and 100 megabits. So I covered the prices earlier, so I'm not going to recover here. But their taxes are $21.95 on average per household per month. And if they get ahead of their plan, they'll pay those bonds off earlier. And they'll be stuck just paying $44.95 for 100 megabits. And that's pretty reasonable. And Rock Falls, Illinois is outside of Dixon, and it's right off 88. And they decided to build their own fiber optic network, and they have about 9,500. So it's about the size of Harvard. And that means it's smaller than Woodstock. And they were able to do it. And they started late of last year, and they're ongoing today. They're building it right now. And their funding method was revenue bonds, which is like neighborhood by neighborhood, fiberhoods, and it's not costing the taxpayers anything. And I'm recommending that we do the same thing here in Woodstock as revenue bonds, which is that we do it neighborhood by neighborhood, or they're only offering internet access. and they're offering a gigabit and 250 megabits. And so Rock Falls, their foundational fiber costs $4 million to hook up all the businesses. Now, that's not costing taxpayers anything. That's just what the cost was to do it. But it would cost $13 million for the entire city. So like for the size of Harvard, it would be $13 million to do it. And their entire business model is just to hook up the government and businesses. Residents, that's just a bonus. So that's how they're doing it. And I don't have their prices, but their prices are a little bit below Comcast. And there are tons of other ones that are like Chattanooga's offering, gigabit 67, Noma, Tennessee at 80, Iowa, at 109. You got Fairlawn at 75, and all the examples down below that we saw before. So there's a number of different models, and there's a number of different ways, but nonetheless, these are all successful models. These are all successful fiber projects done by the government, and there's hundreds more like this. And so the benefits are just connectivity to everyone. It's more reliable, high-speed, future-proof. Economic development is a big thing. This is a big thing, and the elected officials should really pay attention to this, especially if they like to give lip service to this, which they do. This is a big thing. Attract businesses and talent. Businesses go where the talent is. If the talent's here because you have a world-class fiber optic network, they're going to go where it's at. That means more businesses come here, they pay taxes, and it helps pay for the schools, which lowers taxes. And it grows our existing businesses. They can actually attract the talent, be like, why don't you come to Woodstock? Why don't you come to Fox River Grove? Whatever. They could do that. And it increases home values. It actually adds the equivalent of half of a bathroom, which half of a bathroom is apparently $5,000. So if you wanted to add on fiber to your home versus places that don't have fiber, you're gonna add on value to your home. And that's good news, because if you decide to leave Illinois because of high taxes or you're old or whatever it is, you get the benefits. You get to cash out on that. And there's educational benefits for kids and adults in the schools. And you get to work from home. There's no bandwidth caps. Some don't have modem rental fees, actually, so you don't have to pay a rental fee for your modem. There's no bait and switch. Oh, get intro deal and it goes up. No, none of that crap is here. Net neutrality. If we own the network, we have local control. We actually get to say, sorry, you can't discriminate. You can't do that. But here's the big thing. Possibly less taxes. If there's a community-wide network for everyone, I'm talking about the schools county-wide, you're talking about saving schools thousands of dollars a year at least. Thousands of dollars a month. And that translates into the school possibly having less taxes. I can't guarantee that, but if they have less expense, that should translate into higher quality education. And there's a lot of educational benefits like remote instructional and all kinds of stuff that goes with that. But also we can lower we can help out our government entities to be able to increase their capacities of their IT department and make it better. And community fiber, and this is something we put together, so community fiber provides better value from the incumbents. If you look at Chattanooga, which Chattanooga actually offers, they offer 10 gigabit for like $299 a month. So it really blows them out of the water. But if we look at the differences, this is the download per dollar, so megabits per dollar. So AT&T Fiber actually isn't that unreasonable, but however, you don't get any control over it. And Rock Falls is less than AT&T Fiber, but it's better than Comcast and Charter and AT&T DSL. And you see that Walmart, Colorado, and even Linden Township is much better than AT&T Fiber and all the incumbents. So, it's a better value altogether. And the upload is a huge contrast because Charter, Comcast, and AT&T cannot upload at the same speed as they download. They can't do it. Copper doesn't allow you to do that. So you really don't get much. And upload is really important as the cloud internet becomes more important. And you want to be able to watch what's going on in your home. You have a video camera. You need the upload to do that. You can't do that with Comcast and Charter. You want to be able to do edge computing, where your computer and all that stuff is at the edge versus it being centralized. You need fiber to do that. It really just increases your capacity and do all kinds of different things. But there's actually a lot of support for fiber optic investment, but there's just not a lot of leadership for it. So Economic Development District from Northern Illinois has said, yep, fiber optics is important. This needs to happen. McHenry County Economic Development Corporation says, yep, this is really important. And Jim is actively trying to push for this. He's trying to make this happen. And McHenry County 2030 and beyond, which was approved in 2016, says we need fiber optics. So even the county board has said, yeah, this is really important, but they're just not doing anything about it. And more recently, even the strategic plan that was put together by Chairman Jack Frank said that fiber optics is important, but of course they're not doing anything about it. And you got many McHenry County board members and village presidents who are supportive of this. And the school districts they want this, they need this. And there's the Chicago Metropolitan Planning Organization, even in, I think it was, I want to say 2060, 2050 plan, it said they need fiber optics. And Governor Pritzker has announced that he actually says he's a big supporter of this. And there's many studies from Harvard, Purdue, and more that back up everything that I've said here. It's just endless. It's a deep well. And so summary, we can't afford not to do this. The opportunity cost is way too high, so we really need to do this. And so the process. All right, so let's think about this. So I just gave you a bunch of facts. I gave you a bunch of information that supports this case. All right, how do we step through to get there, to get to getting fiber? This is the big thing. So, but keep calm and just trust the process. Trust me on this. And there's a big, long process. And we got at the start, at the beginning, we got the established division. We've done that. Community-wide fiber, cooperative, fiber to everyone, maybe even financing. Next step is review the existing community assets. Educate and build support, build your business case, check your business case with the feasibility study. That's when you hire professionals to say, hey, is your business case solid? Is this going to work? They tell you that. So that way you don't fall flat on your face. But after the feasibility study, you're like, all right, business case is solid. Let's do an engineering study. This is when you get into that, well, how much is it going to cost us? Because you need to hire the experts and basically put all the equipment together, put all the miles of fiber, put all the labor together, and just show you. And without engineering study, up to that point, you can't possibly know how much it's going to cost you. But all the time, you might have to do a referendum. Now, depending on the financing model, you might have to do a referendum, you might not. For Woodstock, they don't have to do a referendum because revenue bonds isn't taxpayer money. It's the users that are going to pay the bond off with the profit margin. That's how that's going to happen. And you got financing, the reason why I even mentioned financing in the beginning is because this is the most important thing. There are a ton of networks out there, and I've heard this from experts, have said that they have a great vision, they have all the stuff, but they get to financing, they're like, oh, yeah, how am I going to do that? They don't know. But I actually have some ideas on that, so that's why I'm offering. And then once you get the financing, implementation, and you go to expansion and operations. And so we're going to dig in a little bit. So where are we? We're right here. We're educate, build, support in the business case. That's where we're at. We need to, get us on board with this, get our elected officials on board, and to say, all right, let's build a business case. Let's actually build it. Let's find out what the demand is, because if you don't know what the market demand is, maybe people are really happy with AT&T. Maybe people are really happy with Comcast, Charter, Frontier, all of our different providers throughout the county. Maybe they are. Maybe they're not. Maybe that's a market opportunity to happen. And so, so the big thing is that we're going to review the existing assets, which I've done, which is we have the Consortium Fiber Network here in Woodstock. We have the ICN, the Illinois Century Network, in Algonquin for the corporate campus. And we also have some fiber optic that runs from Crystal Lake, from MCC all the way down to Randall Road. So we know some of the public assets we have. And that's about it. That's all we have really of public assets to be able to utilize this. And the next thing is to educate, build, support. So educate, outreach concepts, build support. This meeting here, that's what that is. That, there's meeting and the handouts that you have, that's part of the educating process and everything else. Now, people are like, well, why do I need to know about this? And the reason why you need to know about this is because when was the last time you thought about how electricity was structured? The way electricity is structured today has been the same way it's been for like 100 years. But when they built it, at that time, they had to consider this. They had to consider, what kind of structure do we want? And I know it's kind of like, oh, well, I want my water. I want it on. Well, yeah, but there's a lot of us that really need to kind of make that decision is how we really want to approach this. And then there's a big thing I really want. This is what I want the county to do, which is I want them to create a broadband council. I want them to bring the townships, the municipalities, the counties, some of the businesses, the residents, schools, and public safety folks all together. Like, for example, you notice that when I talked about the consortium, the Woodstock Fire District wasn't included. They're not hooked up to the fiber optic network. They had the opportunity to hook up, but they couldn't afford it. But if we did community fiber to everyone, they could get hooked up. And so they're really important to have that. And if they were to hook up to everybody, they would be able to hook into the emergency telephone board that's part of McHenry County. There is really benefits to all this stuff. And of course the schools and everything else, you got to get them all kind of talking together. If you don't get them talking together and having some leadership to kind of step through these processes, this doesn't happen. And finally, the business case. What is the business case? It's your business plan. It talks about how much you're going to take, how many customers you might have, and the broadband study feeds that. That's your market data. What's going on out there? What's happening? Are people happy? How much are they paying? Are they willing to pay more? And so on. And so we have the current situation, which is, remember, which is the government cooperative and the 5 or so members. But what we really want to do is we want to convert that into a private cooperative and add a ton of more people to it to take ownership. And of course have that firewall around it so the money just doesn't fly out to wherever it goes. And so here's the steps you can take. And so one, I really need you to join our newsletter. So if you signed up or, and everything else, I have your email. And that's really important because there's a broadband survey. It's coming. I need that input. If you want something better, or even if you don't know, you just gotta watch this thing and you'll find out. But we really need local champions. What that means is we need people like me. We need people that are maybe willing to do articles in the newspaper, do blog posts, willing to go out there and talk to people. This is a grassroots kind of thing. But really, just talk to your elected officials, like Brian Seeger, from the mayor. Talk to them. Talk to your city council people, especially the new folks, the old folks. Talk to them. Talk to the township. I'm talking to my township. Talk to the county. Like the county board members want to hear from you. It could be just be a basic thing. Be like, hey, I heard about this internet freedom guy, and I like the concept. You need to work with him, kind of thing. I mean, it could be like literally easy. And getting a hold of your county members is actually pretty easy. You can actually go onto the website. I don't remember the URL, but you can go to the county website, meet your county board members, find what's one of your 4 board members. They have their phone numbers right there, so you can call them up. And some of them have home phones, so you can call them at home and you can talk to them straight and leave a message. And a lot of them are really nice. So I'm talking about Mary McCann. She's really nice. She's super cool. And talk to your other municipalities. They have to hear from you because some of the candidates that were running here in Woodstock said nobody was talking about this. Nobody was talking about this. And that's part of my fault because I'm not out there except for here. But squeaky wheel does get the grease. It really does. And talk with your neighbors. Maybe your neighbors don't know, like, hey, do you pay too much for internet? That's like one of my things I like to talk about, which is, how's your internet? Oh, do you pay too much? Are you happy with it? That's a good introduction. And it's kind of a weird conversation, but once you just ask, people just kind of pour their heart out. And that's it.